Hey, good morning, guys. Excuse me. It is August 3rd. I don't think we haven't done anything in August yet. Sorry, last week was a little crazy, so we missed a bunch of videos. But the Chambers is in Luke 18 this morning. Jesus has done a bunch of teaching, and then he says to his disciples, hey, let's go. It's time to go to Jerusalem. And then in Jerusalem, he says all the things that the prophets... Everything that's written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He'll be handed over to the Gentiles. They'll mock him, insult him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. On the third day, he will rise again. Which seems really clear, and it seems very precise. Like he doesn't stutter. He doesn't use any kind of metaphors here. He says exactly what's going to happen. And then it says the disciples did not understand any of this. And I think it's interesting because I think he preached so often in parables that sometimes when he was really blunt and specific, his disciples didn't understand. And Chambers then deals with this idea of us not really grasping what God's doing, the Jerusalem in our lives, like the end, what he is trying to accomplish in the lives of those who are faithful to follow. And so he Chambers deals with this. Even the disciples didn't see, even though it was laid out in front of them, they didn't see it. It's funny because I think there's a lot of times when I read scripture and I think, oh, I get it. And then I read this and I think, oh, well, the disciples had heard Jesus talk about this stuff many times and they never really got it. And you think, oh, well, maybe I don't really get it sometimes. When I think I have a grasp on it, maybe I'm not really seeing God's plan. Maybe I'm so clouded by my understanding, like the disciples were. Like, wait, what are you talking about? Spitting, flogging, mocking, insulting, and crucifying. Anyway, so Chambers, there's a long section here I really like that Chambers deals with about us being faithful to move forward and trust God as he accomplishes our Jerusalem in our lives, because we're not the ones choosing what we're going to do. And that's an interesting point. We are not the ones choosing it. Jesus was doing the will of the Father. He even asks God, if you can, remove this from me, if it be your will. Anyway, so he says he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. The great thing to remember is that we go up to Jerusalem. We go up to Jerusalem to fulfill God's purpose, not our own. We do things in our lives. We're going towards that hard or misunderstood or kind of vague thing. And we're doing it not because of our purposes, but of his. Naturally, our ambitions are of our own. In the Christian life, we have no aim of our own. We have to aim on, we have to let God steer our trajectory. We can't be aiming on our own. There's so much said today about our decisions for Christ. Our decisions. That's where to focus your attention there. Our determination to be Christians, our decisions for this and that. But in the New Testament, it is the aspect of God's compelling that is brought out. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you. That's something I sometimes forget. I didn't choose Jesus. Jesus chose me. This idea that I finally figured it out. And I even say that sometimes when I talk to people about my testimony. I finally kind of submitted. And while submission is a part of it, he chose me and then asked me to submit. It wasn't me choosing him. I didn't choose salvation. Salvation chose me. We have no conception of what God is aiming at. And as we go on, it gets more and more vague. Chambers says sometimes. God's aim looks like missing the mark because we are too short-sighted to see what he is aiming at. The disciples, like I said, even into Jerusalem, even through the Jerusalem experience, weren't getting it. They didn't understand. They scattered for the most part because they didn't get it. They didn't understand what was happening, even though that was God's perfect, precise aim, and he hit the target perfectly with the sentencing, the beating, the torture, and the crucifixion of Jesus. That's exactly what God was aiming at, but it made no sense to them. Chambers says, the work we do is of no account. It is so much scaffolding, the work we do, without the work, not absent, but kind of peripheral to God's work. It is so much scaffolding compared with the big compelling of God. Yeah, I think it's just a good reminder. It's kind of God doesn't need your money. God doesn't need your efforts to accomplish what he's going to accomplish. Our efforts then aligning themselves with God's will is what makes our life fulfilling. And so that's why we need to do it. That's why we need to be compelled, is because when we are in alignment with God's will, then our life is at peace. We're no longer pushing back against something that's going to happen, just like the disciples. All right, you guys have an awesome day.